Good morning, guys. We're going to continue with our mini geography unit today. This time we're moving away from the different themes of geography and how we use geography to discuss history to actually looking at some of those historical civilizations. First thing is homework tonight. I need you to read Chapter 1, Section 2. It's pages 5 through the end of that section, and Section 3 in the textbook, and complete the notes that you're going to get from the substitute teacher today. They're not very long. They are asking you to look at some of these early civilizations and what they had in common, or what may have been a little bit different. Learning goals for today, we're looking at the earliest parts of mankind, the Paleolithic and Neolithic ages, and we want to look at how two major parts of this course, governments and religions, are first formed in these different early civilizations. After you've kind of gone through that, I'd like you to just take a moment here and discuss with your partner, what do you think of when you hear the term or word cavemen or caveman? Talk to your partners for about 30 seconds and then share with the class for a couple of minutes, to whomever is covering the class. If you wouldn't mind pausing just to have a mini discussion and then moving forward, I'd appreciate it. Maybe you thought of something like this, like the Geico caveman, or maybe you were thinking about the Flintstones, but the term caveman is a very evocative phrase for us. It brings us to kind of backwards type populations, and I want to caution you of thinking about historical civilizations in the past as backwards or not as advanced. We have to think of it from the opposite mindset, that these civilizations will continue to innovate. It's not that they were behind, it's that they constantly got better and better at living. The Paleolithic Age is also known as the Old Stone Age, and it's pretty much from the beginning of mankind, 2.3 million years ago, to about 8,000 BCE. And you'll see these dates, they're not hard and fast dates. BCE, before the Common Era, it's the same thing as the dates as BC, before Christ. But as geographers and historians, we've gotten away from using one religion to discuss people of all different religions. So we tried to come up with some more common terms to use. And so we're going to use BCE and CE as Common Era for BC, before Christ, and Anno Domini for AD. Prehistory is the time before written records were kept. History meaning something that's written down. And so these are all occurring before we have actual written records that we've been able to decipher. You'll see kind of when history starts to get written down here. But the first humans appear about 2.3 million years ago, and these guys are hunter-gatherers. They had to go out and hunt and find their own food. We're not at the point where we're growing anything yet, and so as a result, they moved around constantly. They had to travel in small bands of about 30 people. If you think about it, if this is your way of life, if you're traveling all over the place, you can't support a large population. You can't have 5,000 people all traveling together in a pack in an attempt to go ahead and get food. If you're actually hunting something, it's much, much easier for that something to run away from you. And because of this, it's a really difficult life. You are not living very long. 20 to 25 years old. You guys, you're already on the downside of your lives at that point, being 15, 16 years old. People don't live very long. It's very, very difficult. It's a tough life to be a part of. But there are 5 specific discoveries and improvements during the Paleolithic Age that we need to be aware of. The first is toolmaking. And we see sharpened sticks and stones being used, not just what you can find at that point, but now manipulating things to help you live a little bit of an easier life. So taking these stones, sharpening them against other stones to then be able to hunt or dig or cut things down, whatever it is that you need them for. Second major discovery during this time period is fire, used for warmth and for cooking food. This allows people to have a little bit easier, again, a little bit easier life during this time period, being able to keep warm in adverse conditions. This third one, shelter, kind of ties together to that concept. As people began to find semi-permanent housing, people began to move into caves, not building anything just yet, but whatever was available to them, they'd be able to use. And again, this is trying to protect yourselves from the elements, getting sort of inside, and you have the advantage of fire now inside to stay warm in some of these dark caves. Clothing. Clothing, extremely important because you're, again, trying to protect yourself from the elements of nature. And more than anything else, this allows people to move into different areas. If you are hunting different animals, you have to kind of follow the packs. Well, if the packs end up in northern Canada during the wintertime, it's going to be really difficult for you to follow them. And so you need to kind of stay behind. With this, though, now that clothing starts to be used by humans, it allows for humans, large groups of humans, to migrate into different climates. You can move further and further away from the equator in an effort to find food, to explore new areas, to move your small bands of people around. The last one is language. And initially, just sounds and hand signals are used. Think of the traditional caveman stereotype of grunting and pointing at things, and you're actually not that far off. There are different things that we think have evolved even today. When you look at primates showing teeth, could be any number of things, including showing weakness, showing that you're subservient to somebody else, or showing that you are about to attack in some way. Yawns are the same way. Yes, there's a biological part to it in terms of getting more oxygen to the brain, but also it's thought that possibly yawning and laughing were a way to intimidate others. So this language begins to form, and this opens up a whole new world, to quote The Little Mermaid. This allows people to share ideas, to work together, and as we'll see in a moment, to pass on beliefs, to pass on stories about people who came before. And this kind of ties people together more and more. Now it's not just, here's this random band of about 25 people, but by being able to communicate together, you're able to develop a kinship amongst each other. You're able to work together. And that makes a big difference for how these early societies start to form. All right, on the back of your notes, the side that says Neolithic Age, near the bottom, leave yourself a ton of room because you're going to have a little bit more writing to do. But I'd like you to write at least 2 sentences on the back of your notes. Of these 5 discoveries, which do you think is the most important and why? So 2 sentences at least. It can be brief, but again, we're working on explanation skills. Explain to me, okay, this innovation did this thing, and here's why it's so important to mankind. Okay, so make sure that you really, really explain it well. You can do this in 2 sentences, 2 to 3 sentences max, I'd say. Go ahead and do that now. Take about 2 minutes, and then if the teacher wouldn't mind stopping for a brief discussion after that's done, I would appreciate that as well. Okay, hopefully you've had a little decent discussion, maybe just taking a quick poll. Who said each of the 5? I'd be curious to see what the numbers look like. So take a little quick poll and then kind of go from there. But we're going to move forward here into the different types of early man. The first is known as Homo habilis, meaning skillful man. And this is where, again, we start to see those tools being used to a small degree, being able to use the surroundings, not just what's given, but being able to shape it. Homo erectus, man who walks upright. Think of if a building is erected, a building is built up high. This is where we see these early types of man begin to go from closer to quadrupeds, meaning you'd be using the hands in front of you for balance or something like that, to now being true bipeds, where standing up tall, walking upright is going to be the main look. And then Homo sapiens, which is you guys. It's man who thinks. Sort of. We're technically Homo sapiens sapiens, meaning man who thinks about thinking, being able to consider alternatives, to consider consequences and repercussions, not just acting on impulse. And these guys appear about 200,000 BCE. So in the grand scheme of things, if man has been around for about 2.3 million years, and here this isn't even a blip on the radar in terms of these types of man. Okay, Homo sapiens, and about 200,000 BCE. And this is where we see the famous Lucy found in Africa, and all kinds of different fossils and archaeological sites. These are the types of people we're looking at. Of Homo sapiens, there are two different types of Homo sapiens. The first is known as Neanderthals, and again, these are types of Homo sapiens. And these guys are found in Germany, named after the Neander River that's there. Extremely skilled builders and hunters. And so again, we're getting more and more advanced as we move along here. And these guys are the first to bury their dead. And this is a big move towards modern societies, or at least society in general. The recognition that, hey, this person who just died and I had just gone on a hunt with isn't just, okay, this random person. We had a relationship. This person hunted with me. I communicated with this person, and I don't want to walk away and just let all the scavengers pick it apart and eat it. I want to make sure that I preserve the memories of who this person was, and an understanding that this isn't just a lump of meat that's there. It's that former person that I had a friendship with, or something like that. So these guys being the first to bury their dead kind of changes the way that humans look at each other, or at least it's an example of the way that humans look at each other differently during this time. Cromagnon is the second type of Homo sapien, early Homo sapiens, and when you think of the Geico caveman, that's the type, that's the look of the Cromagnon fossils that we have found. Okay, bones, but to a lesser extent. These guys are named after a rock shelter in France, and they have more advanced tools, including axes and spears. So now it's not just sharpening these things, but you're trying to actively say, okay, how can I devise a weapon that's going to be better than just something I found and chipped a couple of pieces off of? You're talking about things like leverage, being able to throw things further. And all of that is showing those new advancements. These guys are the first to create artwork, and this is probably the famous cave paintings that you're familiar of, the paintings of Lascaux in France. Usually they are kind of religious, but it's related more so to hunting than anything else. Here are these incredible hunts that we went on. Here are these animals that we were able to hunt during our time. And these Cro-Magnon guys are the ones who developed those. And so again, when you think Geico caveman, these are the guys you're talking about. Lascaux cave paintings, here's just an example of it. Again, this idea of hunting, you can make out some of the animals here that are exhibited. You can see the use of color, crushing up grains to create different colors, to create, and if any of you are art students, notice like foreground and background. So this is pretty advanced looking for somebody that we think of as being completely backwards. Here's another example from Lascaux. Again, these are all done by Cro-Magnons. Different types of animals, again, the use of color, landscape. And another one here. You can see this is a person, obviously a depiction of a person here. It's possible that this person is falling backwards after being killed or hurt by this particular bison-type creature. These are really kind of advanced for what we think of as being backwards people. What I'd like you to do now is take the next few minutes, let's say 4 minutes max, and on the back of your notes, write 3 to 5 sentences, short mini paragraph, regarding our learning goal. How did the advancements of Paleolithic humans change the way they lived? So think about all the advancements and innovations that came out of this first part of the lecture, and describe and explain how the Paleolithic humans' lives changed as a result of those things. Okay? Take a few minutes, 4 minutes max, to write, and then you can take a brief discussion, maybe 1 minute, before moving on from there. So if the teacher wouldn't mind taking care of that, I'd appreciate it.